This is Elias Dufexes. You're watching that Tom Clancy show.
Hello, everybody, and why isn't my video transmitting? One moment, please. Oh, wait, there we go. For some reason. Hey, everybody, it's so good to have you back. Let me just get over to the desk. We'll do this like it's a regular show. And thank you all so much for being here. Like, oh my God, it's so good to see you all. This week's been weird. So Monday I was supposed to have a show, and what ended up happening there was that my Sunday night Windows update decided that it wanted to break everything. And yeah. So that show is now going to be tomorrow, and today's show is today, which I'm sure makes all the sense. But before we get like going crazy, I just really wanted to take a moment and say thank you all for being here. And then otherwise, let you know that my guest today is a haver of strong opinions and the writer of a weird little indie game coming out called Adios. Bits and Pixels, please help me in welcoming Doc.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course, Doc. How's it going?
I'm conscious.
That's a positive.
Yeah, the ramp up to a game's release, which should be, soon, is always a period in a game's development where things happen very fast and a lot all the time. And it is ooh, it's good. It feels good, right? Knowing that people are, hopefully getting excited about the thing that I'm making, but it's also terrifying because now I have to let people play it and talk about it. So
Yeah, I can
that I'm
understand
doing.
that entirely. My first video game that I ever worked on was Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, and the 3 weeks leading up to release in QA sucked.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's probably worse.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, on another game I did, I basically was doing all of the QA solo because it was an indie project and super tiny.
Yeah.
That was the to play through that game like 30 times total, and that was enough for me.
Only 30?
Only 30. I'm not like a pro QA guy. That was I'd never even done QA before, so that was an experience in and of itself. I huge respect to everybody, yourself included, who does QA because I can't.
Yeah, I did it for 2 years, and that was probably my limit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, let's see, that was 2008. I have friends who are still doing QA at that studio in 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how at all.
I mean, some people are just built for certain things, I think,
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was pretty well, set up for it too, because I was a hardcore Final Fantasy 11 player back in the day, and that game in and of itself was kind of buggy, but I loved it.
I've got a friend who's still playing it. He was playing it like 2 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's devotion.
It really is. I watched him play for a few hours, and I was just finally like, "What are you doing? Like, what's your goal?" He's like, "Oh, I just want a couple items that I apparently didn't get my 11,000 million hours of playtime." It's like,
Man,
okay.
my greatest regret is that I didn't finish my Dragoon artifact set.
No chance of going back and fixing it, I'm assuming.
Oh, I have no idea what any of those login credentials are anymore.
I know that. I know that feeling. I know that feeling.
I mean,
The new flight simulator just came out,
yeah.
and I used to mod flight simulators. Like my first games I ever made were really just mods for flight simulator, and I downloaded so many planes on the old flightsim.com website, and I cannot remember what my username was.
Wow. That sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I could create a new one, but it's like it's always gonna bug me in the back of my head. What username did I go by? I don't know.
Well, yeah, because I mean,
So
you had all that time put into the old one. It's
right.
yeah. I mean, like I can't even imagine in that instance, but like with say Final Fantasy 11, it's so much progress that would be lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
And
that's
you would
not a
have to start
game you
over,
can
yeah.
just play on your own.
Oh, yeah, I'm like that with Destiny.
Yeah.
Um, all my friends kind of quit playing over the past year, and I can boot it up every once in a while, but I don't get any joy out of it anymore.
That's kind of how I've been this particular season. It's just I don't care,
Yeah,
which is sad because
that's
I really love that game.
yeah. I read about this a lot in the essays I do. Getting people to care is really, really important. Everything we do is because we care. I'm actually reading a book right now called Drive by Daniel Pink, and it's literally about like the psychology behind why we do things.
Yeah.
And it's since games require you to do things, right? Like I can wander off, you know, grab a Blu-ray from my collection, pop it in the Blu-ray player, kind of watch the movie, and it doesn't really require any effort. But when I'm playing a game, I'm active. I'm doing things. Like playing Thief is exhausting to me, even though I love it. Whereas playing Destiny is, something I can pretty much do anytime I want. Even though I have motivation issues with it, it is still easy to just jump in and just shoot things for a while, right?
Yeah.
So games have different levels of intensity, and God, there's I don't know. Bungie has lost that. I hate to say that, but Bungie has kind of. I don't think they know why people play games anymore, which is a really sad thing to say. I hate saying that, but I there was a podcast that they did years ago before the game came out where they were talking about guns like, hey, guns are why you play this game. You like find a gun and that becomes your gun. That
Hmm?
gun matters to you. I have a vault now of a bunch of guns that matter to me. I remember where I got most of them. They mean something. I wrote thousands of words on the hung jury SR4, a gun that I
I
love.
wasn't it the SR1?
I think it was the SR4.
Well, either
I can
way,
look.
that is a gun that I absolutely adored as well. Because scout rifles in the original Destiny were my jam.
Yep. Big part of the article that I wrote was me comparing them between Destiny 1 and 2 and saying they're just more fun in the first game.
Yeah.
But for
Real
whatever
quick.
reason,
Oh,
oh yeah, sorry.
Harks VR, thanks for the follow. Yeah, I will say that when Destiny 2 originally launched, I feel that scouts felt good. Specifically, Nameless Midnight, the one you would get from the Vanguard.
Yep.
Uh, but I think it was one or two balance patches in, and they just lost all punch.
So what happened was Bungie dropped a weird note in the patch notes. And this note said, we're going to change how scout rifles work because a lot of players are apparently just staying at range and just playing it safe, and we want players to play a little bit more dangerously. And apparently scout rifles, only give you an advantage at range, so their solution, and this is a weird one to me, their solution was make scout rifles really only work at extremely long ranges that are really just better for snipers. Like I measured the distance once, it was just so weird. But increase the range that scout rifles work and make them really suck in short range engagements. And it was like, that doesn't solve the problem that you stated. And then they word for word repeated that issue after the sniper buffs. They found a lot of people weren't using snipers, so they buffed them 20%, and then they nerfed them 20%. They like one patch later, they were like, oh, we're just gonna go back to the way it was, even though the way it was nobody's using the guns enough. Everything they communicate is like we're making our decisions based on use it seems more like they're playing whack-a-mole rather than they're like trying to go for anything specific. So
Well, it's really
it's really
crummy
bumming me
from a
out.
player perspective because there's so many more interesting decisions they could make to bring us closer to the enemies. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like
It
one of the easy examples is the final boss on the Fallen Strike on Nessus. You know, we already feel that we kind of have to be at that central platform, but make
mhm.
it so it's more not necessarily required, but you know, spawn those electric shanks much quicker and make it so it's just easier to be closer to the boss than it is to be farther away.
Yeah, yeah, that would work. I personally would argue that that's not even actually a problem. Like if players want to stay back and try to play it safe, they can. All bosses have boss stomps. All the game mechanics encourage you to stay back. That fight is one of the only ones where he will come up to you.
Yeah.
Um, like in when you're in most of the encounters in the game actually have like a 30-meter range at most. Um, they don't really go extreme long range. So it's I don't know. The game is bizarre to me. I wrote a piece about it for US Gamer about 9 months before Forsaken came out, and they said, they need randomized loot. They need to, like some sort of checklist thing that players can like, do like a triumph system or whatever. They ended up basically everything I recommended that they do, they did. I don't think they read my article at all. I'm not saying that they like took it from me. Um, I mean, I wish I had that power, right? Because then I'd be like, give me a hung jury 4, and they would do it. Although I did say give me a hung jury 4, and then the next season, uh, Drifter was selling a hung jury like with solar damage. And then that same season, the Mega Nura scout rifle, the one that looks like hung jury, was also available. So maybe I do have this
The
bizarre
Oxygen
power.
SR3.
Yes, that one, the oxygen.
I
And
have
both
it.
of those suck,
Yeah, they do, but I still use it because
right?
it because it's not so much just the feel of the original hung jury. It's like I love the look. Like I
Right.
love the Omelon aesthetic. Like those clean curved lines, it's just it feels futuristic.
I
You
remember
know.
them announcing them, and I was like, man, they sound terrible. And then I started using them, and I was like, oh, this is my favorite gun in Destiny history.
This
It
is
was
the
a
best gun ever.
delightful turnaround. Yeah.
In my head canon, that is the
Mhm.
gun that my hunter uses exclusively, aside from his fully restored Kvostov.
I can respect that. Also, as a hunter, I have to respect that.
Well, I'm now a Titan main, but like when I think about my Destiny character, I think about my hunter.
That's fair. I think I remember Bungie being like, we need to balance the number of players who are, picking character classes, so we're going to change the stats. And it's like, you got to understand, when people pick characters, they don't know anything about Destiny. They boot up
No,
the game, they see 3 character models. Which one looks coolest?
the
Most people
hunter.
pick the guy in the cape, just because capes are cool. Hoods are cool. Assassin's Creed is like an IP built entirely on the fact that the protagonist wears a hood.
Yeah.
It's he looks cool. There's a sleekness, and I don't know. When I saw hunters, like, oh, this is the coolest character class. This is what I'm gonna play. But I play hunter or rogues in basically any chance I have to play a rogue. I play a rogue. I don't play much Final Fantasy 14 right now, but I I'm playing a rogue in Final Fantasy 14.
I mean, I can
Just
understand and respect that. I picked the hunter because, yeah, they look cool. Uh, yeah, the Titans, like, I appreciate the Titan aesthetic,
mhm.
but it feels like World of Warcraft overcompensating.
Yeah, the character design in the first game is really strong, and then the second game it seems like they really went for differentiating silhouettes in a way that wasn't necessary.
Yeah,
Um, so we get these more bigger titans with the shoulders that are just huge. It's like somebody's wearing toilets on each shoulder.
yeah. But I do appreciate that we have the ornament system that gives us some ability to kind of like bring that back.
Oh yeah, the
Uh,
customization system is great.
yeah, I mean, I feel like each of my characters needs their own separate aesthetic. Like my warlock is cyberpunk,
Hmm.
because of course. Uh, my Titan, I actually try and slim it down as much as possible because I like the idea of my Titan really only wearing like a chest piece and then just beating the shit out of everything. Like, I don't
That's
need
true.
armor. I can make
Yeah,
walls.
I would love to run around as a completely shirtless Titan. That would be pretty fun. Just
Yeah.
flexing on everyone.
I also exclusively play Exos.
Really?
Yeah.
What is the appeal of an EXO to you?
Well, I don't know if you can tell from looking at me, but I
Hmm.
like being a robot person.
That's fair. That's fair. I am a meat popsicle most of the time, so
I mean, I
I
am
don't know.
too, but I play a robot on the internet.
Right, that's fair. That's fair.
It's
You got the
much more
voice for it.
fun.
You got a great, smooth, strong voice. It's
Well, thank
wonderful.
you. Is one of the good things I got from my dad.
Oh yeah, his voice good too?
Yeah, his voice was pretty good. He smoked a lot more than I did,
Oh, okay. Okay.
but I didn't get
He
his
got the
hairline, which I am very thankful for.
Oh, I definitely got my dad's, so I wear a beanie all the time. Part of my brand.
Yeah, I
It's
can
not a
feel
very
that.
unique brand,
I like to wear a
but it's
flat cap. That's part of my brand.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Some people pull it off, some don't. I think it would work really good on a CRT.
I haven't thought about getting hats for all of this. There's just so many other things behind the scenes that just kind of take priority.
No, that's I get it. I get it. I'm not worried about that at all.
Oh, yeah. Well, I knew we would end up talking about Destiny at length. Uh, but there is one thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, and that's
Okay.
Adios.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Sure.
for people who are watching who might not be familiar with the game, Adios appears to be this first person story game about a pig farmer who disappears bodies, who doesn't want to disappear bodies anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good summary. The journey to that point was long and arduous.
Just
A
out of
lot of people,
curiosity, how
yeah.
much do you like the movie Snatch?
So Snatch was part of the reason I thought of the idea. The actual reason I thought of it was I was reading the news headlines and I came across one that said that a pig farmer had been eaten by her own pigs. And that
Huh.
just struck me as, yeah, that struck me as really sad. These things that you love and care for, you know, um, just being kind of not caring about it. I'd read about, if pets are locked in with, this is very morbid, but if pets are locked in with their owners when their owners pass, sometimes there's they don't have food, and so they, they start to eat the body or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I was always kind of, shocked by that, right? Like people say, oh, pigs are super intelligent. They're so much, so smart. But, a pig will still eat you alive. So a
Yes.
pig doesn't have, morals necessarily.
Well, I
I remember just
mean,
kind of thinking about that. Oh yeah,
the
sorry.
question then doesn't become does the pig have morals, but is it truly moral of us to look at other animals and be like, I shouldn't eat you?
That's an interesting question that the carnivore in me doesn't want to answer.
Well, I mean, look,
Yeah.
I fully respect and understand everybody who goes vegetarian and vegan, and I fully understand the environmental reasoning behind it.
Right.
But damn it, animals just taste so good.
I think for me, I have difficulty metabolizing carbs and I metabolize protein a lot better. So, I tend to be very carnivorous,
That makes a
personally. But
lot of sense.
I've always thought that livestock animals are different than like pets, right? Like,
Yeah.
a dog is like a member of my family. I would never eat my dog. But
Yeah.
if I was gonna go raise cattle to eat, I mean, they're like bred to be meat, so I probably might as much. But with Adios, it was like just this idea of it was just a very sad idea, right? Like, and that's what kind of attracted me to it. I have ideas all the time. Everybody has ideas. There are people who just want to be the idea guy. And it's like ideas are so cheap. That's not a valuable thing to have. Like, oh, I have an idea. Well, okay, that's fine. Now what? And so for me, I try to filter out all the ideas I'm having, just zero in on the ones that are interesting. And so, like, I'd had this idea about, being a guy who's cooking food on a beach in first person, and he's just cooking for people. And I know people would be like, "Oh, that sounds like the food cart game that I'm forgetting the name of, um, Cart Life." I think it was Cart Life. It got removed from Steam. But for me, it was like the character dynamic of you're a guy who gets to watch people just go about their lives on a beach. And, one day a guy comes up to you and he says, I know you. You used to kill people, and I want you to kill somebody for me. Or I'm going to, tell people you're still alive. And then it goes from there, right? Like the premise was interesting, but I never could figure out the game in a way that would make me happy. So I kind of put it to the side. And then I was working on a shooter that I realized would be too expensive. So I tried to think, what's the smallest game I could make? And once I happened on this idea of just being on a pig farm for one day, it was like, okay, so we just make one map. We have just the assets for one space. Can we spend the entire game in one location and just have it be, about this pig farmer who regrets what he's done and deal with the sadness, the vibes that I was feeling when I first read that news article.
Yeah.
Um, and then how do I put this? I don't really like walking sims in general. Um, so I made a walking sim where how do I put this? Made a walking sim where it was like, okay, how do we fix the walking sim? How do I make a walking sim that is interesting to me to play? What makes me happy? And it was like, well, most walking sims I play, you walk around and you just like listen to like a story play.
Yeah.
And it's like this game doesn't deserve to exist as a game, in my opinion, which may be a little bit mean, but it's like, be like somebody saying, "Hey, I filmed a movie," and you're like, "Oh, really?" And they're like, "Yeah," and then they show you the movie, and it's just a footage of them turning pages of a novel. Um, I don't want to read at somebody else's pace. That's not how. That's not an interesting story. So I
Especially if
came up
you
with a
read significantly faster than other people.
right, right. So
God, it burns reading at other people's paces.
exactly. Some people too fast, some people are too slow. And either way, you didn't get what you needed. Like reading is intimate in a really nice way. And I feel like filming a book with pages being turned would not make the full use of either reading a book or watching a movie. And that's the way I feel about a lot of walking sims is you're not really doing anything that makes for a good game, but you're also not doing anything that really would make for a good movie or good any other kind of story. So it ends up being kind of mush. Dear Esther is beautiful as like an art installation, but it's not really making use of anything that I would consider an interesting gaming or narrative experience. Even though the music's great, the voiceover is great, the art's spectacular. Like, I don't have any complaints about what's there. I just don't think it's put together in an interesting way. So
Yeah.
I was like, I want to make a walking sim where you talk to people, like where the story that you're experiencing is the story that is being told. It's not a separate story from the actual experience you're having. There's not this weird disconnect. So I made a horror game about that. It won a few awards. You know, and then for various reasons, I decided, I'm going to strike out on my own and make something new. Um, and I mean, a big part of the reason was I ended up getting hospitalized while working on that game because um, we were working at a pace that was much faster than I needed to be working at for my own health. So I was just like, yeah, I want to start a studio, and I want to make sure, as a disabled person, I really want to make sure that I'm creating a scenario where people are safe, health wise. Like
Yeah.
I'd worked at the University of Kansas, and I got fired while I was working there, because they exposed me to mold, and I got really sick, and they didn't want to get in trouble, so they were just like, work's not getting. I think she said work's not getting done that needs to get done or something. I think she said that needs done. She grammared it wrong, and I remember that. And it was like, yeah, because I had to go to the hospital. So I always wanted to create like a space where I could kind of move at my own pace and structure a game in a way that I think is maybe smarter than other people, not necessarily the past team, but AAA on the whole, and all these other projects I've seen. Like, I know people who start making the game and then try to figure out what they're making after they start, right? Like you see like Blizzard, and they're like, we'll ship it when it's done, we'll ship it when it's good, and then they ship Diablo 3. And it's like, maybe polish, like a long period of time polishing your game isn't what makes it good. Maybe it's starting from a really strong, you know, space. So I really wanted to experiment with like good pre-pro and knowing what we're doing like 100% and just working to that blueprint. So with
Yeah.
Adios, once I had the concept worked out, we went and we pitched it, and I was like, okay, how can I build this in a way that's not like, Blizzard or Bungie or BioWare or anyone else whose name starts with B, because apparently I'm alliterating now. It is. I wanted to be like, let's plan out the game and then build that.
Yeah.
And we've now, like, we started actually making the game in August of last year. So we're just over a year right now, and
Yeah.
it's almost done.
Oh, neat.
And we got Albert Wesker as one of our characters, to voice our hitman. Like, we have a guy who like walks around a farm and does stuff with it. This is very much me building on the ideas in my previous game, of how can we create a meaningful and interesting space? How can we create like games as a place? Because I'd read an article by this guy who, said, look, Looking Glass shut down, and Dishonored didn't sell super good, so maybe people just don't like maybe just people just don't like immersive sims. And I'm like, I think people love games about going to a place and being, living a life within them, because Skyrim is immensely popular, and that is
Yeah.
literally doing everything an immersive sim does, just broad instead of deep.
Yeah.
And people love it. They love, I know so many people who are proud of, oh, I didn't even do the main story. 9 years later, I still haven't finished the main story, and I have like
Dude,
200 hours in that game.
I have completed that game I have finished the main story, and I still stand by the fact that the best story in that game is the Dark Brotherhood.
Really? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I love the Dark Brotherhood storyline. I also like the Nightingale storyline. I forget the name of like that mercenary band in Whiterun. Like, I love their storyline. Like, the main story's okay, but
Right.
it's just like being a member of the Dark Brotherhood, especially in Skyrim, because like so much of it is about rebuilding the Brotherhood, and it's
Mhm.
just like, and also there's an evil clown. So
Do
it's
love
just,
evil.
yeah, dude, who doesn't love evil clowns? Aside from people who are deathly afraid of clowns.
That's fair.
Uh, but yeah, so wait, hold on, tracking back a little bit.
Okay.
You got like Resident Evil Wesker is your hitman.
Yeah, the one who says, 7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I have to spend with you. That, or play with you. That guy. Yeah. DC Douglas. He also voices like Tamashita in Persona 5. He voices trying to think. He's one of the cool dudes in Monster Hunter World. He's in a bunch of games. He's in Ace Combat 7.
Nice.
Yeah, and I remember being a little worried that like maybe he'd be really like too anime for the game, but nah, he knocked it out of the park. Like, we did the script, and him and Rick is the voice of the farmer. And Rick's not he's not in as many video games, but I just found out that he's actually I looked at his IMDb recently, and it turns out he's the guy from the start of the Resident Evil 3 remake who like hides in a truck and is like, "I'm not coming out until it's safe." And I was like, he's completely different. Like he sounds like a totally different person. And they both had like really different methodologies.
Yeah.
DC had more like what you'd expect from somebody who does a lot of anime games, and Rick was more like, what's my motivation in this scene, like a very sort of traditional actor. But the two of them working together was just we actually got them together in a booth. A lot of games will have people record lines separately, but
Yeah.
our sound engineer and our voice director were both like, these lines are so intimate and so good together. We really need these two actors together. But obviously, COVID's a big problem. So
Just a bit.
Yeah, just a bit. So we actually got them to remote in, and we figured out a way to record everything together, and it sounds great. Like what
Awesome.
was in the trailer is stuff we recorded remotely. Um, it was a really amazing experience. I've never had people, take the words that I've written and speak them into existence, except for like, YouTubers streaming a text game I've worked on and then reading the
Yeah.
lines, which is different than somebody trying to embody the characters. So
I can definitely 100% understand that. I have an uncredited single line of dialogue in Captain America Super Soldier for the Wii and the 3DS.
wow.
I know. I'm
Wait,
big
is it
time.
the same? Is it the same game on both
Yes.
both consoles? Really?
The 3DS version got tuned down a bit, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
that
just assumed
was
they would have made a completely separate game for the 3DS.
Well, what they did was they made a completely separate game for the PlayStation and Xbox, and then the Wii version was made at High Voltage Software just outside of Chicago. And yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was the last like professional game I worked on.
You've only worked on unprofessional games since?
Yes. As I'm the one who's worked on them, yeah, they're very clearly unprofessional. I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie to this interview.
That's fair. But I mean, hoodies are comfortable, and wouldn't you rather
really
be comfortable?
I would. Yeah, I would. But at the same time, there's like a level of what's the word I'm looking for here? Like believability that comes with like a tie.
That's true. There's the professionalism, convinces people that you mean business.
I'm trying to break that because I'm just, like, because I imagine we're probably fairly close in terms of age. And I imagine you also grew up with this notion that professional was a collared shirt and like pressed slacks and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's
that's
bullshit.
It really is. It really is. Like,
yeah. Professional's an attitude. It's a way you carry yourself. And I can look just as professional as a guy in a 3-piece suit wearing a hoodie with my sleeves pushed up, showing off my visible tattoos.
Makes sense. Yeah. I'm I think I haven't entirely broken that mode yet, right? I think there's still times when I try to dress up, but I don't like doing it.
Yeah, I feel there are appropriate places for dressing up. Like aside from, like the whole weddings, funerals, that kind of thing, but like court, I feel that's an appropriate place. Like it's the costume of the event.
I had to go to court wearing a heart monitor. That was fun.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was as a result of my heart surgery. So I was just still wearing it, and I was like, I hope they don't worry about what I'm wearing.
I've only ever been to traffic court, and I showed up in a polo shirt, and I felt overdressed.
Yes, that's where I was too.
And I think, I'm pretty sure the lawyers were dressed more casually than I was.
I mean, what's the point, right? It's traffic court.
Yeah, well, in my instance, I was trying to get my driver's license unrevoked, or not unrevoked, but unsuspended.
Oof.
It was
I
it like I didn't do anything stupid or anything. It was
uh
just stupid things happened that were beyond my control.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had somebody throw away my registration in the mail because they assumed telling the state I don't own this car when they did uh would just simply somehow magically change it to me. So I never got my notice to renew, and as a result I never renewed, so I was like running on month late tags. Things like
Yeah.
that happen, right?
Well, I got pulled over and they couldn't give me a ticket at the time. And they said they were going to mail it to me. I never received a ticket. I figured the officer just was like, whatever, we'll let the guy go. And then I
Right.
get a notice several months later telling me that my license had been suspended because I didn't pay my fine or show up in court. And I'm
Holy
like,
shit.
are you kidding me? So I went and I challenged it in court, and the judge was like, all right, cool, you're fine.
I love when that happens.
Yeah, I do too. But I was like one of the people who was like the tail end of court, so I feel like she was probably just like, whatever, it's reasonable, and it's not like something with a $5,000 fine. Get out of here.
Yeah, I remember sitting through there just watching all the other people go through their processes, and like some of them I'm just sitting there like, why would you do that? And other people it was like, wait, why did they get a ticket?
Dude, I was sitting
What?
there, and there were people who were who were contesting tickets for like doing 60 and a 30. And she was like, hey, this is, like a 4-point offense. I'll drop it down to the cost of the ticket in 1 point. And then they'll go, can't you do better? And I'm like, motherfucker,
I
you
remember
just got. Uh,
the judge at mine was like a real asshole. Like he was basically just like, if you don't treat me like I'm the king of this court, I'm gonna, hit you as hard as I can. Basically, it was really weird. Um, and they call me up there, and I'm like, hey, and he's like, you know, so this is just a traffic thing. I don't even need to deal with this. Go over and talk to the the county or whatever, or state, whoever it was. I go over there, and she's like, so you didn't pay your thing, and I was like, yeah, my mom threw it out. Actually, do you have any advice about that? And I think by actually explaining like what the situation was and asking for advice, not just saying it wasn't my fault, but literally being like, how do I avoid this problem occurring in the future? She seemed to be, friendlier about it. And so
yeah.
I just paid off what I owed and got my registration back.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
even had proof that
amazing
I got
how.
it the next day.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing how reasonable people can be when you speak with them reasonably. But it's also amazing how not reasonable people can be, no matter how reasonable you are.
Yep, I've had to deal with plenty of that, especially as a retail worker.
Yeah.
Uh, I had a lady come to me once in retail, and she wanted to return a 3-color ink cartridge. And I was like, you've opened it, so I can't, I can't accept it.
Yeah, because they
And
come in
she's like,
their
but all the
own special wrap thing.
yeah. And she's like, but all the blue's used up. And I'm like standing there, and I'm just like, ma'am, if you tried to return to me Neapolitan ice cream because you ate all the chocolate, I wouldn't be able to take it back. This is the same process. She got really mad, and, speak to the manager type stuff. And my manager was like, no, you opened it. We literally cannot accept open it. You can recycle it, and we'll give you a credit, but we cannot take this back as new. Of course, she was just furious. So I'm going to go over to Office Depot, instead of Office Max. They'll take it. And it's like, didn't you say you bought it from here? People are like that, right? It's just, but they do get more reasonable. Like, Adios got announced, or our trailer got released recently, and I was, elated by that. And then GameSpot, I always say GameStop, and I mean GameSpot.
Yeah.
GameSpot posted a tweet about it. Like, they did an article, and they, have like a bot that, reposts articles every once in a while. And they
Yeah.
posted a tweet about it, and they said like Xbox exclusive or console exclusive Adios. And I was like, oh no. And so I click on like somebody links it to me. and I'm reading it, and some are like, "Wow, this looks cool," and other people are like, what?" And other people are like, "Did they watch Snatch, or is this a bit? This is kind of gross because it's ripping off the real life Picton killings." And I was like, "What are those?" I had to look it up. Turns out there was a serial killer who that's how he disposed of bodies. So that was the thing.
Well, I mean, when you think
But
about it, pigs are kind of like the tiger sharks of the land and much more accessible.
yeah, that makes sense. I've never personally, eaten tiger shark though, and I've eaten a lot of ham.
See,
So that is one difference.
sharks are a class of animal that I won't eat them. It's like a matter of respect.
That's fair. They are very respectable
I mean,
nemesis.
they've been around for 300 some odd million years.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, they're pretty deserving of respect.
Yeah, considering they haven't felt the need to evolve, I would say that's
Well, I
you
mean,
know
they've had a crazy amount of forms over the years.
it's
Like, I
true.
mean, the world tooth shark, the ones that had like flat top dorsal fins, like they've done some cool shit.
Right, but they haven't gone from like
Well, the body shape's
sea
like
creature to
perfect.
human. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They just keep optimizing, but they
Hmm.
they hit real good early on. But with Adios, I was browsing those comments, and one person was like, there were a couple of people who were really upset about it, and I've had this. I've had this happen before. Somebody makes a game and somebody says something nasty about it. You want to respond because like I put my heart and soul into this. This means something
Yeah.
to me, right? And there are a lot of people like don't say anything, and so I just responded to the guy and I was like, thanks a lot for kind of ruining my morning, I guess, dude. And it wasn't quite like that. It was just like I worked really hard on this game. He was saying something like he was upset at Microsoft because they didn't have exclusives like cinematic exclusives like Sony did, and I think he was like a PlayStation guy who was just being like Microsoft sucks because this is the kind of exclusives they have. And I was just like that's not very cool, dude. Like I worked really hard on this game. It's an indie game. We had like a tiny budget. We're not even being published by Microsoft. This isn't, like Halo or something. And I didn't expect a reply. And instead, he comes back a little while later and he's just like, you know what, man? I was really angry when I posted and I just took it out on somebody and really didn't think about the human cost of it. And I'm really sorry. And he deleted his other tweets. And the other guy who said something similar did basically the same thing. Um, so it's yeah, like you say, when you deal with people like face to face, there is sort of more of a willingness to engage with that person as if they're real than when you're online, right?
Yeah.
um I would probably be nicer to certain people, or I should say I would have been nicer to certain people as like a 17-year-old kid had I thought of them as real. Once I kind of went, holy shit, those people on the other end of the internet are human beings like me. I think I straightened up and I stopped, being less of a, you know, teenager online, basically.
Yeah.
But it's one of those lessons I try to be patient in teaching people because I think most of the people who are really, really angry online are just it's just you're looking at a computer screen. You're not really thinking about the people as like they're real because it doesn't process. So I found that like when I had negative comments on my articles, if I would just respond to people in good faith and just like, hey, if you really want to talk about this, I'll talk about it. Most of them would back up and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was doing. I've had a lot of just apologies that way. Not that I'm seeking apologies, just I found that once you remind people you are a human being, many of them suddenly get very apologetic.
Yeah.
Um, so it's one of those lessons I kind of learned, doing journalism. But I'm much happier doing, actually working on a game now. I get better paid, which is nice, although not by much. But I'm making indie.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm working. I'm on an arc, right?
Yeah.
If my first project was let's make a game where we do a lot of verbs, right? We drive, we take pictures, we do things like that. Then my second game is let's really like spend time with a person. And if we'd had more money, I would have spent a lot of time trying to. I could probably would have hired somebody who actually works on AI to like spend a lot of time helping us build like not Milo, but somebody who's really Milo's the
Oh, I know Milo.
Microsoft Connect. Yeah. Microsoft Milo was a really interesting idea. Um, I would have loved to be able to get like somebody who really engages. So we got DC Douglas to say fuck the police. But we didn't really have like a full like we can't make him like stub his toe and then whisper that under his breath or something. So he's it is what it is based on what we had to make, but it is fundamentally kind of a like a little drama, like a somebody told me Tracy something play. They told me it was like a play, and I was like, that's really cool. But that is also how I'd been thinking of it. Is I was writing essentially a play, like meant to be put on a single stage, like without changing much of the set. Just two people talking. A lot of people seem to like the script, so I think I'm doing good. But yeah, I'm working towards something, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that it's somewhere along the lines of creating spaces that people can exist within in meaningful and interesting ways. There's a part of this probably comes from just being a huge fan of the Stalker games.
Yeah.
I loved Shadow of Chernobyl and especially Clear Sky. Not so much Call of Pripyat. That's the most popular one for many people, but that's because it's the most like a video game. Like you're like, oh, here are clear objectives, and here are things I can do. So it's like a real video game wearing the skin of Stalker, whereas Stalker's like this unadulterated like vodka directly from Ukraine. It's just more potent because it's less of a game. It's more of a real space. At one point, apparently, the AI was so good it beat the campaign, and so they had to tone it down. Yeah, they're a very interesting studio.
Yeah. That's some good AI.
That's the direction I'm heading, I hope.
That reminds me of when they were working on Halo 3 and the co-op AIs were so good in the initial phases that players would just hang back and let the Arbiter handle everything.
It's weird, right? Like when you play a game and Arbiter does nothing, and you're like, oh, he's useless. But I think if you let him handle everything, then you have what you just described, right? Where players are actively choosing not to play.
Yeah. I mean, there is that it's an exceedingly fine line to the point where I don't even think it's even perceptible, but I feel that maybe not in other games, but for Halo, I like the illusion that the Arbiter is doing something.
Right.
If I feel like he's doing something, as he doesn't really need to do something, but finding out how to do that is just as difficult.
I think one way to do it would be just to have him target the weakest enemy first.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he kills a grunt, you're like, hey, he's doing something, and you get to focus on the elite.
You then don't have to worry about spending the bullets on the grunts.
Oh, that's really fun, especially with Grunt Birthday Party active.
Oh, who doesn't play with that skull on all the time?
I forgot to turn it on once, and I had to stop the game and like start over.
It becomes almost a necessity when you're playing like legendary with scoring almost.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because then it's just like, oh, whew, that grunt's gone. Now I can worry about something else. Or people who are insane and do those lasso runs.
I have a friend who just beat Halo 2 Legendary in under 3 hours, which is one of the achievements. Like he posted it last night, and I was like, how? Why? Are you okay? Like I don't like hard games, and it's not that I'm not good at them. I'm pretty good at games. It's just that a lot of people enjoy hard games. Like a lot of my friends who enjoy them, like we have Discord, we set up streaming, and then we watch each other play games, right?
Yeah.
And I had a friend who booted up this Dead Rising 4, put on the highest difficulty, and he just threw himself at it for days. Like, I think it was like 2 days. It wasn't like full 24-hour periods. I just, he'd log on for the evening and he'd try this encounter and he'd keep beating his head against it, and then he'd stop and he'd come back and try it again later. And it was
Yeah.
like, dude, are you okay? Like, why is this fun? You're not making any progress. I like enough of a challenge. Like, I was playing Shadow of the Colossus this year for the first time, and it was like most of those colossi felt really good to me because I could make mistakes, learn from the mistakes, and then figure out how to beat them. And I felt like I was getting better at playing Shadow of the Colossus. But it wasn't like I just have to, time this properly, or it wasn't. I wasn't like beating my head against the wall until like burst through. And that's, some people like that. Some people are into that. But for me, challenge isn't. Heroic Halo is like my favorite level of difficulty. Like, Halo Reach on Heroic is perfect.
Yeah.
That is what?
Oh, I just said yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said no for a second. My brain was like, what? Why would anyone say that?
Well, I
To
mean, because
me,
everybody has a different understanding of what perfect
That's
is.
That's true. That's true. But for me, that's perfect. That's where I want to be. So when I do games that are about challenge, I want it to feel really like you did something, but I'd rather you not fail a lot. And a good example of this is Resident Evil 4, right? They actually dynamically tune the difficulty. A lot of people who play that game think they're really good at video games, and it's actually just behind the scenes, there's a brain changing the difficulty, moving all the knobs and pressing all the buttons and flipping all the switches so that it feels like you're good every step of the way.
Well, see, I
And I think that
was good at that game until it became an escort quest.
no one's good at escort missions.
No, but they're still in everything.
Yeah, it's really weird. Tailing missions are another one. And it's like, why are
Yep,
these
also hate those.
fun?
They're not.
I don't get it. Like, they're not.
No,
They just
like,
aren't.
I think
Like, period.
maybe they're fun in like a driving game, because then it's like it makes sense in a way, but then
I
it
think
just doesn't for a lot of other things.
I think if I was gonna make like a James Bond game, and actually have you in the Aston Martin like tailing somebody, and you could turn your lights on and off so that people couldn't see you, like it was at night, and you were like, you had to keep your distance, or you could make it a game about the act of driving. That might be fun. And then, halfway through, you turn it into a chase where suddenly you're trying to escape, and then you eventually, use the James Bond gadget and thing. That
Yeah.
might be fun. 99% of the time, it probably isn't going to be. With
Yeah.
Adios, I'm just over here doing, you can play horseshoes, you can shoot skeet, you can, there's a lot of things you can do in the game. You can milk goats and squirt the hitman with goat milk while talking about mortality. There's a lot of like things you can do. I wished we'd had photography. I wanted to have a moment after the hitman leaves. He basically leaves you to kind of get your affairs in order if you aren't going to change your mind. And so you can spend like the first half of the day you spend with him, and the second half of the day you spend alone. Thinking about the process of what's the last meal like, and then he comes back in the evening, and there's plot things that happen, so I'm not going to spoil those. But
I
in
appreciate
the
it.
afternoon, when you're alone, you can go do like fishing, and you can actually catch this big fish that's eluded you all these years or whatever. But I wanted that photography. I wanted to kind of have this quiet, beautiful moment where you're walking along and you see a deer and it actually gets really close to you and you can snap its picture. I think in our footage, or at least in one of the screenshots you revealed, or gifs or whatever, there's pictures of the dark room that you have. Like, we put it in, but ultimately, based on the resources we had, we weren't able to actually go with like full scale photography. But
Yeah.
that's okay. I've had 2 games with some amount of photography in them, and then a really interesting game called Umurangi Generation just came out. That's a first person photography game. So I bought it a couple months ago, and I'm gonna be playing it, see what it's like. But I've heard lots of great things about it. So I like
Nice.
photography in games. I like mechanizing photography in games.
I can
There's
understand
this
that.
really cool game, Gravity Bone, which you can buy if you buy 30 Flights of Loving because it's included. Gravity Bone has photography. Like it's one of the very few things that is. I feel like it's a frontier that we haven't yet sort of gone through, and I'm hoping one day somebody will make like really good photography games. And maybe that's Umurangi Generation. I haven't played it yet, but I have seen tons of amazing screenshots coming out of that game because people are actually doing like real photography stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Sorry for my weird tangent about a
Oh
game
no,
that
it's
seems funny.
fine. It's funny that you mentioned photography because one of the first games I ever tried to like figure out a pitch for was a photography game.
Oh, okay.
It was the basic idea of it was how do you, or my thinking was, how do you take players who are used to a more like active and violent role in games and then make a game that's going to be more in line with what I wanted to do. And this is, like 10 fucking years ago. So like I didn't know shit. I still don't know shit. Uh, and the
Nobody
idea,
does.
yeah, nobody does. The idea was that you were like a combat photographer in a war zone.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's as far as the idea got because I had no idea how to do anything. But yeah, so the basic idea would be that you would go out and you'd try and like get good pictures, good composed pictures, and then kind of uncover various stories going on in this war zone.
I remember hearing about a game that actually it was in development that was basically that same kind of idea. It was in development in Australia, I believe, by the guys who did shoot, what's it called? Hand of Fate.
Okay, I
Believe
was
that
hoping you weren't going to
was
say L.A. Noire.
no. I know people who had to work under the guy who led that studio, and they do not have
Ooh.
kind things to say about him as a person.
I mean, nobody has kind things to say about him as a person.
Well, apparently he got hired somewhere, so apparently somebody does, but yeah, it
I,
happens, I guess.
I mean, we live in the worst timeline.
We really do. But, it is what it is. We got to make the best of it, I suppose. For my part, I'm out here. I'm trying to make a studio where, everybody is cared for, all their needs are met. I was really lucky that when several people left the project as their contracts, expired, and we didn't need their, work anymore. Not we didn't fire anybody or anything like that, but like,
Yeah,
it was like, okay, we are done with all the animations we have, in the game, and our animator moves on. And they said to us in their sort of exit interview thing, they were like, hey, you guys are really good people, and I really enjoyed working for you, and I'm glad this is like, this is a game I can put on my resume because it was such a great experience. And it's like, that's what I want to accomplish. For
yeah,
me, this game is a success in that we're gonna like, whether it sells or not, the team was healthy.
yeah,
I hope we sell enough to make a second game. That's my other main requirement for whether or not a game was worth making. But the fact that our team, like so many of them, they're just like, yeah, let's work together again. I want to work together again. One was like, I can't do it as a contractor, so hire me as a full-time employee. Because they hate the taxes. But
yeah,
like really positive vibes, right? And it's like that's what I was going for. Like we had, our producer wanted to go give a talk in Poland, and like I'd been on projects. Like I took a vacation once to Yellowstone. This is like a decade and a half ago. Took a vacation to Yellowstone months in, planned months in advance, family vacation type thing. My parents were taking me. I was still in high school, or I was just gone into college. And my boss, she calls me while I'm in Wyoming, and she's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "In Wyoming at Yellowstone." And she's like, "I need you to come back to Kansas." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, there's like my boss just gave me a task and I need you to do it. And I'm like, I'm on vacation. Like
Yeah,
we
no.
greenlit this like in May. This is even if I wanted to come back, I physically do not have a way to make my entire family, give up their vacation to drive back home. And she just kept pestering me about it, and I was like getting really worried because like this is like my first job, and I was like, you know, I don't want to, I don't want to get fired or anything. So I went to her boss, who was also my boss,
Yeah.
because she's like my manager, but she wasn't really the boss. And I went to him. His name was Arlen, and I was like, so Arlen, my boss wants me to do this task, and his eyes widen. And I was like, and she wanted me to do it, on my way back from, or while I was still in Yellowstone. And he's like, didn't you ask me if you could go to that like in May? And I was like, yeah. and, and he's like, okay, well, this is a little concerning. And I'm like, what is? And he's like, no, nothing you did. It's just I gave her that job to do, and I've been wondering why it's 2 weeks late. And yeah, so you're not supposed to actually do that job because it requires it involves looking at the like other students' work, and you're not supposed to see that because that's private information basically.
Yeah.
And your manager has the clearance, but you don't. And so he fired her. So I've always wanted to create like a work environment where that doesn't happen, where people feel free to do things. But you gotta have a balance, right? Because you can't have somebody just go like, yeah, I'm working here, but then I'm, only showing up like once every couple of days to do literally nothing. Like that would be a problem.
Yeah.
So it was finding a balance between like, a person like me who's been discriminated against because of my disability and wanting to, protect anyone else who might have a similar situation, but also trying to learn how to, make sure people are still doing their job. And I think we did a really good job of it. I think the team health was good, and the fact that people want to work together in the future says we did good, more than anything I could personally say or whatever. Whenever
Yeah.
I'm dealing with anxiety and my brain's like, oh god, I'm a failure, I'm just like, yeah, but a bunch of people want to work with me again. If you do it once, like a lot of people will want to work with you once if you sound cool. It's whether they come back for more that I think really determines whether or not you're a good person to work with. And so I'm trying to be that person.
See, it's kind
And
of how I feel about this show, where
Mhm.
everybody's all like, "Oh, I had such a great time," and I'm just on the inside like, I don't know if they're telling the truth.
If
But
they want to come back, right?
yeah. Well, the one point where I thought I might be doing this kind of okay is when one of my former guests went out because he saw that I had tweeted at somebody and asked him to be on the show, and he's just
Mhm.
like, "Yo, you need to be on this show," and I
That's
was just
awesome.
like, I DM'd him and I was like, "Yo, you don't need to like tell people this." He's like, "No, dude, your show's legit. Like, you need more people."
Hell yeah.
And I was like, "Score."
It's
So
it's great to be validated.
it really, really is. Uh,
I'm if Adios, like I'm over here worrying it won't sell because it is, a narrative game. And like as somebody who has done, AAA work being like, here's what helps your game sell. I'm like comparing myself, to these big video games that I can't name because, working as a consultant, you're not
Reasons.
allowed to. But it's like, oh God, I'm never gonna be this good unless I have, shitloads of money. When I woke up this morning, my brain went, I wonder what the monthly burn of Naughty Dog is.
Oh
And
God.
I did some napkin math, and I think it's like $2.5 million just on salary, not including like building rent, software licenses, anything else. Not
Yeah.
electricity bill.
You
you know,
know the details.
yeah, like I can safely assume maybe like $3.5 million a month. And it's like, we're over here with an entire budget less than what Neil Druckmann will probably make on his bonus for The Last of Us.
Yeah.
It's less than he probably made in pre-pro on the game, just in normal salary. Like
It's
we are,
really nuts how inexpensively you can make a game if you appropriately plan.
well, we tried that. We sat down and I think it was like we entered actual production in August, but like we were planning it before then. I think one meeting in like June, I basically sat down and said, "Here's what I think the day is like," and I laid out my idea for how the day would flow, and that's basically what made it into the final game. I think there's a couple scenes we ended up cutting. There's a few things we had to trim down. Like building the interior of a car is very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't go inside the car and try to start it. You just kind of interact with it on the outside now. And I wish we could, but this is the money we had. Like this is the project that we are making, so this is what we're gonna do. And if people like it, I think I calculated if we can sell about 7,500 copies, we're gonna be good to go for enough time that I can at least get something else pitched, and like I can get a year or so to not worry. So I'm hoping to hit 75. I want to hit a lot more. Like
Yeah.
50,000 would make me happy,
I was
right?
about to say, nobody just wants to sell enough.
Right. I would love this to be a smashing success, but I don't need it to be.
Yeah.
Like emotionally. If we can make enough to get people to give us money to make something else, I'm gonna be happy. But that's because I had a teacher in film school. He actually apparently shot Tupac's last music video.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. His name's Matt. He makes a lot of movies with my screenwriting teacher Kevin Wilmot, who wrote like Black Klansman and Defy Bloods with Spike Lee, as well as he's a accomplished indie filmmaker in his own right. He made cool stuff like Confederate States of America, and they basically work on everything together. Matt's the
Yo,
cinematographer,
I just,
and yeah,
real quick, you know some cool people.
I'm very lucky.
I know
I
that
came-
feeling very well.
Yeah, I came to film school here at KU, and I was like, wait, you're working on a movie with Spike Lee? And he's like, yeah. I was like, cool, I hope that works out. And it did, apparently. Dude won an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. So,
Yeah,
you know.
dude, I wanted to see that movie so bad.
I will, I just haven't yet.
Yeah, there's so much stuff.
Right?
It's like, I mean, I saw earlier you were playing Jedi Fallen Order.
Yes.
And I played that earlier this year, and I wish I had played it when it launched because I adored that game.
I've got thoughts, but yeah, I'm like I'm near the end, I think.
Because you're on
like,
Dathomir, I gathered from your screenshot that you shared.
believe it or not, I went back there so that I could get the health power up.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I have all 10 health power-ups now. I've explored. I mean, there's still like a little, a few areas I clearly haven't been to, but like plot-wise, I'm finally going back to the first planet. I just finally got my revenge on Ogdo Bogdo.
Yeah.
It took longer than I thought because I didn't realize you could force pull his tongue out to get the achievement.
Wait. Okay.
What? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had very strong feelings about that game because I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Right.
And I really appreciated it because that was one of the with the exception of the BioWare Knights of the Old Republic and then Obsidian's Knights 2. That was the first time I really felt that I inhabited Star Wars. And that's awesome.
It has stellar art direction. Like
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And I think
it also feels dynamic, which is really, really weird. Like I played the some of the new Battlefront games, and I was like, these don't really feel like Star Wars. Like they feel like realistic environments, and then some Star Wars characters in them, and they don't feel right. And then I went and I played this I played this game. It's like, oh my god, I'm playing as a Jedi. It's too bad I hate Jedi. I don't like the whole idea of, oh yeah, you have magic blood and that means you're destined for greatness. Like I like the idea that anyone can seize greatness.
Yeah. Which
So
is why Wedge
I don't-
Antilles is my boy.
right? Way cooler than a guy who is literally going on a quest to find privileged children and save them from the Empire.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I appreciate that because that is something that is necessary because those children don't deserve the treatment that the Inquisitors get. They
Oh,
deserve
absolutely. Yeah.
they like, I feel that the whole idea of the Jedi and the Force is ruined by the Sith and the Jedi as these hard like institutions. Like, I feel that if those children are given the opportunity to self-actualize, like, that's one of the reasons why I appreciate Rebels and Fallen Order specifically, is that I feel that, like, if you want to stick with, like, Jedi, they need to spend time with real people. Like, they need to spend not a little bit, but like years working
Yep.
like a crew of a starship, and that gives that, like, because Ezra, who starts as like this complete jerk, ends as one of the most solid Jedi by the end of Rebels, and like,
I haven't seen Rebels, so
oh
cool.
my God, it's so good.
I'm
Like,
over here just I'm like, ooh, Mandalorian? That's not a Jedi. I love that.
oh yeah,
I
no,
liked Rogue One more. I liked I even liked the Han Solo movie
dude,
more than a
I
lot of the
like
mainline
Han
stuff. Like,
Solo movie too.
don't get
The
me wrong.
worst part about that movie is when Darth Maul showed up.
Yeah, and that's because the guy who's in charge of like storytelling at LucasArts like has a canon, and he wants everything to always connect to it. And I was actually saying this as we were talking about me and my friends were talking about the Mandalorian season 2. Is this like, you know, we're getting a lot of characters from that dude's stuff in the Mandalorian, and it's like, can't things be standalone? Why does everyone have to show up all the time? Like, it's fan service, and I don't like fan service, like, and I say this as somebody who has, put fan service in my games, right?
Well, I mean, there's the necessity of it at times, but it's something that is like, not a trope, but a convention. Like, there were ways to use fan service for not evil.
Right. For me, it's like, I had an El Camino in my first game, so I put an El Camino in my second game, and I will
Sure.
probably, it's obviously definitely not a legal, or definitely not a copyright infringing El Camino. It's a sports truck. The brand is never mentioned. The model is intentionally designed not to be actually an El Camino. But, I love that kind of car. I want
Yeah.
to own an El Camino, as stupid as they look. It's probably because they look stupid. So, I'm putting that in, right? And so people who see that, it's like a signature, right? They know that's
Yeah.
me. But I'm not out here like,
To be like, hey,
here's the
this
origin
is a
of
dog
Han
game.
Solo's blast.
Yeah. I mean, we don't need to know stuff like that, but, because the stories that we create in our head for how he ended up with his blaster are excellent. I mean, yeah, and like, dude, Star Wars Squadrons. Oh, I can't wait. Like, just that one moment from the announced trailer where you look over to your left and Wedge is on your wing and he nods.
Oh, yeah.
And like,
But that's because you get to be there.
I know. And I want to look over and like Wedge and see Wedge and have him be like, hey. And I'm going to be all like, hey, I did the thing
It'll
that
be great.
you wanted me to do.
Yeah.
And
But would it
also,
be?
I want to
Would it
fly a
be?
TIE Interceptor.
Oh, everyone wants to fly a TIE Interceptor.
They're
though.
the best.
They're amazing. They're so good.
They really
But-
are.
Let me throw this out there though, right? Like, imagine you're playing any Star Wars game and you have this like deep, personal, interesting story about, say, being a smuggler, and then Han Solo shows up, and then Wedge shows up, and then and at some point it starts being like, look who's here, and it's like, aren't there other pilots in this very large galaxy? Like, I don't mind playing a game with Wedge in it, but does he need to be in everything? And that's the problem with Darth Maul, right? Like Darth Maul shows up, but he doesn't really add anything to the plot. He's just there to go, hey, remember me? That's
Yeah.
right. This ties into Dave Filoni's TV show where Darth Maul has spider legs. And it's like,
he got them fixed in the normal legs with like a season or two later.
oh, okay. But didn't he have? Oh, I don't even remember what he had in the
he
movie.
came back initially with spider legs, and then his brother took him back to Dathomir, and they like fixed his mind ish, and then they became like robot monster legs, and then he eventually got those back to like normal humanoid legs.
Right.
But by the time he was taking over Mandalore.
I am going to have to watch this show, apparently.
I have watched all of Star Wars except for the Christmas special.
Really? That's I can't believe you haven't seen the Christmas special. I thought every Star. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But yeah, and it's Star Wars is different things to different people.
Are we better off knowing that C-3PO was built by Anakin Skywalker?
Oh, no.
Right?
C-3PO that was stupid. Like, I have no problem if C-3PO was there. Just as I have no problem with R2-D2 being there. Like, to me, the droids are kind of like this Greek chorus. Like, they're just kind of there to present information that normally wouldn't be available to the viewer. And, like, honestly, it's like they could have just, boarded the ship, and then, C-3PO was there, and they were like, oh, shit, we were supposed to scrap this guy, But, no, they have C-3PO now, and that's the one they're stuck with because like, Star Wars plays with this whole fate thing, and which I personally hate, but I fully understand as a storytelling technique. But... Yeah, and it's just like it would make like I like the idea of fate in this if it's organic and it makes sense. So like in the smuggler game you were just kind of positing a minute ago, like I wouldn't mind it if like Wedge showed up if we were trying to smuggle through New Republic territory and then all of a sudden like Rogue Squadron rolls in and then you're all like, because then that's cool. Because you've shown up and it's like, oh shit, their big bads just rolled in, and like I really gotta make my persuade check here, Yeah.
I think there are definitely ways to do it, but I am enjoying that Fallen Order hasn't done that. Like I don't recognize anybody. I'm just going through this game so far, and I'm,
only one person that you recognize is gonna show up.
Oh, cool. Okay. I have a guess.
It makes sense.
I have a guess, but I'm hopeful it's him.
Who's your guess? I won't confirm anything. I'm just curious as to what your guess is.
Don't confirm or deny, but I want it to be Darth Vader.
I mean, I can understand that desire.
Yeah, like I mean, I could go on.
I mean, his cameo in Rogue One was, well, I mean, yeah, the two scenes with him were like, aside from being two of the best in the movie, but everybody kind of forgets that Vader's kind of sassy.
What's great though is that I'm bad at words tonight. I'm tired. What's great though is his showing up in Rogue One makes sense, right? Because it is a direct prequel, and he was in pursuit. Yeah. So like he's there because it's his job, and he's literally supposed to be the sidekick to the Emperor, right? Like he is the Dark Knight working on behest of the great evil. Like that is exactly what he needs to be. And so the fact that he's terrifying, perfect.
Even better. I mean, it was the first time he's really been terrifying in 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And not even just that, but just the scene with him and director Krennic on Mustafar. And I'm just sitting there and everybody's like, oh man, he's like throwing one-liners and like he's being sarcastic. And I'm like, did you not watch Empire where he scolded Boba Fett about disintegrations? Like,
didn't he also just his first appearance, right? Like in the fucking, where he chokes the dude out and the guy's like, you have a stupid old religion, and he's like, yeah, say that again. Like,
yeah, that's Vader. Like
he has more charisma in those things than he does in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think
I
that's
mean,
because no one was telling George Lucas no, and George Lucas was he actually made like a lot of really, I think, good decisions. It's just that he forgot how to tell good stories in the process.
yeah. Uh, I feel that I understand that the whole idea is that it's the Skywalker saga, but I
Mhm.
feel that the point of view character for the prequels should have been Obi-Wan.
Absolutely.
Because
I
the
think
prequels are the story of his failure.
yeah.
Not because Anakin doesn't really fail. He doesn't have somebody who can consistently and powerfully challenge his arrogance. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I
yeah,
think they needed to be closer in age, and they needed to be like rivals and like best friends. I think because that's how he talks. Like when he first says, like, "I knew your father," we served together in the Clone Wars. Like, there's a weight there that Alec Guinness gives to that line that
that wasn't
I
in the
don't feel
prequels.
it doesn't show up in those movies. Like, I don't see why anyone would want to be Anakin's friend.
No,
He's kind of annoying.
and an
When he says,
asshole.
"From my point of view, it's the Jedi who are evil," it's like no one gives a shit about your point of view.
Well, the
You're
funny
still,
bit then being that Obi-Wan's statement of an absolute, and that only the Sith deal in absolutes. Like, come
it's a
on.
good point.
But I mean, like, Ewan McGregor played that character to perfection.
Oh, he did.
And I am so excited for his show.
I hope it gets back on track. I'd heard it
It is.
spiraled
It's
out,
getting
but
back on track.
okay, that's excellent.
There was news about it this week, and I was like, yay! Because like, God, The Mandalorian was so good. And the only thing like I want now is I want a Rogue Squadron show.
Yeah,
Because
I would be into that.
Because like I love because the Mandalorian takes us into that like scum and villainy smuggler kind of side of things. And then we had the continuation of the Skywalker saga, which brought us back to the Jedi, and that's cool too. And we don't. The other thing that I really love about Star Wars, like the thing that appeals to me, is that like World War II fighter race aspect of it. And we got none of that in
My
in the sequel
nickname,
trilogy.
we really didn't.
I
My
mean, we
nickname
had
comes
Poe,
from
but Poe
working
was
on a bomber.
What was that?
Oh, I love Poe. My nickname comes from working on a bomber, a B-29 named Doc.
Nice.
Yeah, I was signing on to IRC one day, and it was like, "You need a nick." And I was like, "Okay." And I'd been working on Doc at the time, and so I was like, "Okay, that's what I'll do, Doc." And then it was like, "This username has been registered. You have to change your name." So I added a Seuss onto it just so I could get through. But
Yeah.
Doc is the name I use now. That's a thing that
Yeah.
means something to me. There's a whole history and culture there. I wasn't allowed to play games growing up. My parents hated them, but I played a lot of Flight Simulator. And I got to watch lots of like fighter pilot movies and all these cool things. I got to go to air museums. I worked on a B-29 when I was in high school. Like that was so much of what I did. On 9/12/2001, I was actually at the airport, which was really eerie because, what had happened the day prior, and the FAA had, shut everything down. But my dad had scheduled a visit to a airplane restoration facility at the Mid-Continent Airport there at the time. I think they moved up to Newton after that, but whatever.
Yeah.
They were restoring a Grumman J2F Duck that had been at Pearl Harbor. So we're at this
Oh, wow.
eerily silent airport. Nobody's there, and we go into this workshop, and these guys have this Pearl Harbor veteran airplane, right? Like, so airplanes have always meant something to me, and Star Wars having those vibes was always great, and that's why I'm going to be pre-ordering the game as soon as I get paid. I have $3 right now.
I fully understand that.
Yeah, I'm getting it because it's like I love living that vibe. It's why I love Ace Combat, right?
Yeah.
But I also love Poe, and the reason I love Poe is Poe is Poe is what should happen if somebody does what he did. So many stories, and I've seen so many, right? Some of these fighter pilot stories are, they're like, oh, ace pilot guy, you're too, cocksure of yourself, and you're, gonna endanger people someday. And then, the pilot's like, no, I'm too badass to fail. And the guy's like, that's it, give me your gun and badge. And then, there's the whole thing, right? And then the
Yeah.
guy proves that by breaking the rules, he's cool. Poe doesn't get to do that. Poe breaks the rules that his, bosses, the actual tactical people, like they know what's up. They
Yeah.
have plans, and he doesn't need to know. A lot of people like if she would have just explained to him, it's like, yeah, be a private in the army and try telling, try telling your general that.
Yeah,
You will
like
at
the
court-martial.
captain doesn't tell the general what to tell them. The general tells the major to tell the captain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's absolutely true. And also too, Laura Dern killed it in that role.
She did.
And I would follow Admiral Holdo to the gates of hell.
One of the reasons that I loved her specifically, though, and I remember coming out of the movie theater. This was before any of the controversy was out. I think before that was manufactured by like just online people looking for reasons to get hits on YouTube. I walked out of that movie theater going, "Oh my god, if the fighter pilot actually did the stupid thing, everything that happened should have happened." But even better was Leia and Holdo are like, he's a good dude and he means well. Like it wasn't just he got thrown in jail or something. They literally forgave him because they could see in him the capacity for being the badass he can become.
Yeah.
And so this movie is about, like, for me, a lot of people like this movie is about, this or this. For me, the movie was about Poe learning from his mistakes to be a better person.
And
he gets like a really good arc, and then they don't know what to do with him in the next movie because J.J. Abrams is like, but who are his parents?
Well,
Why do they matter?
Well, the thing that pisses me off so much about that third movie is that it spends the first half getting rid of The Last Jedi.
It really does.
And it's just like, I'm sorry, but The Last Jedi, at least in my opinion, is the bravest and boldest take on Star Wars ever. Because
when I watched
it goes right back to what you were saying, where it's about, it brings up this whole, it doesn't matter who your parents are, you can be fucking the most important person.
Yeah, it's the decisions you make are the ones that, matter, not the decisions that other people made. Like for me, I watched that movie and I was like, this to me feels like watching Star Wars for the first time, because it really did. Like it felt like actually seeing, like when I saw Star Wars for the first time, it was like, oh my god, I've never seen anything like this. And that was what I was having again. It was the perfect sequel in that regard.
Yeah.
But people who have really gotten into the kind of the expanded universe stuff, I guess it's Legends canon now. A lot of people liked Star Wars, and then they got jobs writing for Star Wars, and they created a pattern with Star Wars that was just repeat what already exists. And I know not everyone did that. I know there's, exceptional fiction throughout, but a lot of what the fans ended up expecting was more of the same. For them, there were set rules. Yeah. This is the way it has to be. And then they get mad when those rules aren't adhered to, I guess.
They were existing in this weird place where they wanted something new, but they didn't want things to change.
I talked about that in my Dead Space piece. I wrote about Dead Space 3 once, and I said the hardest part about making a sequel is people want the experience of seeing the thing they fell in love with for the first time, but because it's a sequel, they don't want anything. They don't want it to change. It has to be the same, and so they wrestle with that because it's a friction. They get even frustrated, and that's kind of a problem of just having a very boring media diet.
Yeah,
I remember being on a forum once and a guy telling me that Mad Max Fury Road was a bad movie.
That
and
person
like,
can get punched in the teeth.
Well, I wanted to know why. Like, I always try to take people in good faith, because usually I can learn something and it's interesting and it's useful.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, why do you think that? Like, what makes Mad Max Fury Road a bad movie? And he goes, there's no story. And I like raised my eyebrows and typed back like, what do you mean? And he's like, like in a Marvel movie, like a good movie, the characters will explain their motivations.
Oh
And in
my!
this movie, no one explained their motivation. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like putting my hands on the sides of my skull and just pushing them together.
I
You know,
feel like you posted about this on Twitter, and because this
it
is
is,
ringing so many bells.
yeah, it is something that I've mentioned before, and it is, but it's a thing that happens when people consume very little. They have a weird tendency to feel like this is all it can be.
Yeah,
I did a joke tweet where I said, I just finished The Last of Us 2, and should I spoil a minor thing?
dude. I mean, I don't personally care because I read The Girl with All the Gifts and The Boy on the Bridge, so
Right. This is pretty much this is so this isn't really a spoiler because of the nature of what I'm about to say. In the first game, we met the guy who's a cannibal. That game's like 7 years old, so I don't give a shit about spoilers.
oh my god, there's
We
a
meet that guy.
cannibal.
Yeah, right. He's really nice in a like suspicious way, and it's like, oh, he's a cannibal. Like I just remember saying that on the stream, and everyone was like, no. And I'd never played the game before because it was the first time I played it was last year. And I was like, he's definitely a cannibal. And then, 5 minutes later, he's a cannibal. In The Last of Us 2, when we were doing the stream, I was like, oh no, the religious people are going to eschew technology because they think that brought about the end of the world or some shit, huh? And yeah, that's basically what it is. And then you move forward just a little bit, and suddenly, I was sitting there with my buddy Phil, who was hosting it with me, and Phil goes, slavers. And I was like, what? And he goes, slavers are about to happen. And I was like, what makes you say that? And he goes, that's what's going to happen. I've seen enough zombie movies to know we're about to encounter a bunch of slavers. And I was like, man, I know Naughty Dog has done this twice before, so they're very predictable, but like, surely they won't do slavers. And then at the end of that scene, slavers show up. And I made a joke tweet, and I basically said, look, all right, nerds. If you're gonna write a zombie story now, you are here's like a writing exercise. Tell a zombie story, but you can't do a cult that hates technology and thinks that zombies are satanic or some shit. They even call zombies demons, I believe, in The Last of Us. It's like really, really cliche. It's I think Craig Mazin, the guy who's like in charge of the show, basically said, yeah, the big thing we're running into now is trying to figure out how to adapt this for TV, because a lot of what makes the game special is that it's a video game. And it's like he's basically giving us code for, oh, it turns out we just ripped off scenes from The Walking Dead, and that's gonna make it really hard to make this a meaningful show.
Yeah,
Like literally, one of the biggest scenes in The Last of Us 2 is literally the scene with Negan and the baseball bat. It's just a golf club. That's the only difference. Like the cuts are the same, the way the sound fades out as a character loses consciousness but then gets kicked in the head to go,
See,
cut to black. All of it's the
I
same.
I gave up on The Last of Us about like an hour, 2 hours in,
Mhm.
because I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, opening of the game, daughter's gonna die, and
Oh yeah.
then you get there, and then he has another companion, and then Ellie gets introduced, and I'm like, companion's gonna die. And
Mhm.
then, of course, then that happens. And I'm just like, if I'm going to be able to call all of these story beats, I'm not going to play a game that plays this clunky.
Yep. It doesn't control good. The level design is really bad. The stealth is simplistic. There's nothing good in it. Like it looks nice. I wouldn't
I
even
mean, yeah, it's a
necessarily say
pretty
it.
game, but I'm not going to say that it's bad, but I read a lot of books. I watch a lot of TV and movies.
Yeah.
I'm not going to waste my time on something that I don't find super fun that's also super predictable.
I will do it for two reasons. One of them is money.
Okay, that's fair. I
Yeah.
don't get paid to do
Right.
any
The
of
reason
this.
The reason that I wrote about The Last of Us, or I'm writing about The Last of Us 2 right now, my car died. And so I posted on Twitter and I said, look, if I can raise enough money to pay for my car repairs, I will stream The Last of Us 2. I will write about I will write about The Last of Us 1. If I raise this much money, it was like part of my car repair, and then my car repair ended up being more. So the whole thing basically went to this expensive car repair. Head gasket shit. But yeah, it was like, I will stream, like I will buy the game, like I will need to raise enough money to buy the game, but I will buy the game and then I will stream the sequel. And then somebody was like, I want to spare you from having to buy the game. I happen to have a code for reasons. Here you go. Here's the code. Play the game. You know, and just like discuss it like openly and honestly, like offer an alternative to all these people like praising the game. And you know, as much as I don't like Naughty Dog, I was like, well, you know, I don't know what the perspective will be until I play the game. Like
Yeah.
I have my doubts about their ability to tell good stories, but like I'm just gonna play it. We're just gonna talk through it, and we'll see what we see. Like it will be fair. And I think I did a good job being fair. But yeah, it was pretty predictable. It's pretty predictable. The worst part was they tell the same story twice. Also, your comment about, you know, oh, this person's gonna die and then this person's gonna die. Well, yeah, that happens a few more times. It happens quite a bit. I walked through an area and I was like, this person's gonna die and this is gonna be a combat space. Yeah, that's what happened. But
yeah.
after playing those games, I wrote on Twitter and I was like, hey, don't tell like the religious cult, don't do a biker gang, you know, don't do the slavers or cannibals. Like tell a zombie story, but without these like 4 things. And you know, my goal was like try to open yourself up. Try to tell a story that, you know, try to get past like the crutches, the things that you kind of default to, because I think that's where the like when we default to things, when we tell stories, we tend to destroy our drama and our character motivation. We start including beats because, you know, they feel safe. And when we push ourselves to go, actually, what would the characters do here, and what would make this interesting and memorable? Once we start doing that, our stories get better. Like I think one of the reasons that people really like a particular scene in Adios when they've played it is no one's ever had a scene like that.
No.
It's, you know, it's nothing super special. It's just 2 guys talking about the death of the American chestnut tree, like a species as it went extinct.
Yeah.
But I mean, how many people have ever heard about the death of the American chestnut tree? Like not a lot of people are aware that like West Virginia, half their economy used to be forests or logging. Like a lot of the reason there's poverty in West Virginia isn't just coal, it's that logging is gone. So then everyone had to work in coal, and there were too many people to work in coal, and now coal's not even getting demand. That's a big problem. But yeah, the game is like we have a scene about talking about the American chestnut. That's weird.
Yo, I'm
But
just gonna say this right
sorry.
now. You're a nerd.
I am a nerd.
All right, cool. I'm glad we're on the
I'm
same
absolutely a nerd.
page.
I literally
Says the
I
man
literally,
who plays a robot on the internet.
That's fair. We're all nerds, though, aren't we? I mean, everybody
Yes.
has something they're really into. I'm not really into the American chestnut tree, but I was given a job. It wasn't like a real job. It was like, hey, I'll pay you $20 if you help me with my trees, by this crazy guy who was trying to save the American chestnut. And that left an impression on me, so I put that in my game. Because my game is fundamentally an American game.
Yeah.
There aren't very many American games. There's a lot of games about America, you know, but they're like Far Cry 5, where it's like Canadians made this. You know, I actually talked to the lead writer on the game, and he is like French or Quebecian. I can't remember which.
Probably Quebecois.
Yeah, that sounds better than what I said, and probably is accurate. But you know, they're not really Americans dealing with, you know, American stuff, and so much of what America makes is for export. Like, you know, we make Marvel movies, but those aren't really about America. While they are American in sentiment, they're not really getting at the, you know, like what it's like to live here as a human being. It's just a lot of like LA and New York is exporting its own self-interest. For me, like the really American fiction is like the book Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is just Illinois, like through through and through. It's very Illinois. There's Iowa, one of the I states. Or like the movies of Terrence Malick, right, where he's like, yeah, this is what it's like to be like a Presbyterian living in Texas. So for me, this game deals with a lot of, I would say, it's not about America, but it is a game where I researched the actual zip codes that were accurate for the time the game takes place in and the location.
Which I'm guessing is West Virginia.
No, it's the game actually takes place in along Highway 69, which is in western Kansas.
Nice.
Or sorry, it's in eastern Kansas along the Missouri border. I said western because I'm tired. Basically, it's about like 40 miles from my house.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's the actual location, like the geo data that we use to make the game is, I don't remember what the actual term for it is, but like the height map is derived from a farm near where I grew up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything to most
You're
people.
like going
but,
like hard on the verisimilitude.
I would rather create the emotional authenticity than the visual authenticity. It's one of the reasons the game looks like a cartoon. That's what I was, hopefully going for. I don't know if we're gonna achieve that, but we're trying. I don't know. I wanted to create a sense of space, and it was because this person that I know, their name is Kevin. I can't remember their last name. They're making a game called Southern Monsters that they kickstarted a while ago, and I was lucky enough to be sitting on Kevin's talk, or not like on the talk, but like sitting in the room during Kevin's talk, and Kevin talked about how when they were creating like the spaces, like because Kevin grew up in Arkansas, so they created these like scenes for the game that are very true to what you would expect if you go into a house in Arkansas. That really kind of left an impression on me, and I'd already been thinking about this in my last game, where I'd been driving around town and I saw like this giant model horse standing on top of a water tower, or just there were weird things around where I grew up. We have a giant ditch in Wichita that's just this huge drainage ditch designed to prevent flooding. It's a massive like 1950s construction project, and like just thinking about little details like that and being like, how can I take these sort of true authentic things and represent them in a game where most games don't convey that emotional reality? Like is this possible? Is this doable? Is this something that I can make interesting? And so that's, I don't know, I'm rambling a bit, but that's what I wanted to go for. Was I want you to be in this place, and like if somebody plays the game and goes, oh my god, that looks like something I grew up with, or that hits me in a really specific, unique way, I feel seen, then we're doing it right.
Yeah.
Sorry for my long rant.
Oh no, you're fine, man.
I keep wanting to finish the story about the Twitter thing. Some guy got mad at me, and he was like, "How dare you you impose so many limits on my storytelling?" And I'm like sitting there going, "But if you do these, like any one of these four things, you're already telling a story that's already been told. Like, why does your story matter?" And what I found is for people who haven't read a lot, who aren't like literate in many forms of media, imposing a restriction makes them feel like they can't do anything because all they know to do is repeat the few things they've seen. Once you start like watching, 10,000 movies, and 500 billion books and 30,000 video games, suddenly you're like, oh, there's a lot of ways we can mix and match, and our influences become muddied. Suddenly, we're able to compose things that no one's ever thought of. And for me, as somebody who is obsessed with creating things no one's ever seen before, I'm aware that there's nothing new under the sun. But there's that quote by I think Eliot, which is like, bad artists imitate, great artists steal, or something like that.
Yeah, you get the point across of it.
Yeah, he has a lot more to say than that, but the basic idea is no one is completely original. Like, you exist in the world, and everything you ever conceive is based on something in the world, some stimulus. All you're really doing is synthesizing them in a like you're doing chemistry, basically. You are creating something cool, but you don't have to be completely wholly totally original. Even what's like David Lynch does. I saw an article or a Twitter thread or something where somebody went through and just went, here are all the paintings David Lynch references in his TV show. And it's like there were like 50 paintings. Like, some of the most iconic shots in Twin Peaks are literally just from other paintings. And it's like, well, that makes sense. David Lynch is a painter. But Twin Peaks stands alone as like a unique thing because he's a great artist and he steals.
Yeah.
But like not in a, it's not plagiarism, it's learning how to synthesize and create new things. And that's what I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
So when I see somebody, go, here's the zombie game, yup, there are cannibals, it's like, okay, I've seen this story before because I'm very literate, just as, you mentioned, you've seen The Girl with All the Gifts, like, or did you read it? I
I
remember there's
read
a book
it
too.
and I saw the movie.
Yeah.
And there's
Oh, there
the
you go.
prequel / also kind of sequel novel called The Boy on the Bridge, which is
Right.
also really good.
I'm not familiar with that one. I heard you mention it. I was going to ask you
Yeah,
what it
it's
was. and my
remember
brain
towards
rambled.
the end of Girl with All the Gifts when they find the giant like truck thing?
I haven't seen it yet. Like,
Oh.
it's one of those. I have it.
Okay.
I literally have it here with me, but I haven't seen it yet.
It's not a spoiler, but towards the end of the movie they find this giant like mobile laboratory thing that
Okay.
was like lost with all hands in the events prior to Girl with All the Gifts. And The Boy on the Bridge is that prequel that sets all of that up.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, like Girl with All the Gifts. The movie's pretty good. It's a really serviceable adaptation, and the book is also pretty good. But like Boy on the Bridge just delivers on the promise of that book.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I have to check it out.
And hey, you know what? They don't have cannibals.
Gasp.
Yeah, there aren't.
It already
cannibals.
makes it more interesting to me.
The like not good guy faction of people are they're not anti-technology and they're not cannibals.
Huh.
And they also don't really show up much at all. They more just reference them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm writing an article on The Last of Us 1 right now because I'm talking about both games because, I was paid to do that, and it's just taking forever because I'm shipping a game and dealing with ADHD is hard.
I can imagine.
I recently started getting treatment for ADHD, so like fingers crossed I'll start to see improvement soon. But as I'm writing this article, I started out by talking about living through a tornado. I lived through an F4 tornado. There have been worse around me, but I don't really think I lived through the F5 tornado in Andover. I was, 30 minutes away. That doesn't really count.
No.
But the F4 I lived through, the Hayesville 1999 tornado, that was coming directly towards the church we were in and only moved out of the path, like, I think it was blocks away from where we were. So I consider myself having lived through that. And I remember...
Yeah, I would agree.
After that process, going out and seeing the destruction that it had just caused everywhere. And I remember like these toys that I'd grown up with and my mom having us pick the toys that we didn't need because we didn't have a lot of money. And she was like, we're going to, pick your like favorite toys. You get to keep those, but we're going to give some toys to the kids in need. And I remember, as many issues as I have with my parents, politically now, they are, deeply religious people, but that also means there is some drive to do good, to bring good into the world. And I remember thinking about how just going to the food bank and realizing there was a line of people not to take from the food bank but to donate. And we donated toys and other things too, and it was like, goodness occurs when disaster strikes. There's actually books on this. There's even like some scientific studies that people have done that show people actually band together when bad things happen. It goes against common like media stuff, but the media stuff happens for drama, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's more exciting when one person has been bitten by a zombie and tells it, and hides it, because then you have a scene where the audience is sitting there going, "Oh my God, he could turn," and the audience is, wondering what's going to happen next. That's for good storytelling. It's not even good storytelling. It's dramatic storytelling, which can be good storytelling, but it's not necessarily how people behave. And so, as more people imitate what happens and we codify certain things, what starts off as a dramatic moment in a good zombie movie turns into just the thing that happens in every story, because you gotta have it. I've talked to people who do that. Like, I'm like, why are you including this in your story? And like, what's in the genre? You gotta have it. And it's like, but does it make the story good? And it often doesn't. And I know there are people who could say, "Oh, well, The Last of Us, is this, huge critically acclaimed video game." But so many people supporting that game, so many people who are acting like it's good, are people who are, I shouldn't say acting like it's good. They believe it's good, but it's a lot of people who were saying, this is just like a movie. This is the time games will be taken seriously. They just keep forgetting that this has happened with every single Naughty Dog game since Uncharted 2.
Yeah.
They were like saying, Uncharted 2 is the best action movie this year, and it's like, The Hurt Locker came out this year, right? It just kept going. It some guys said that this was as good as Schindler's List, and I played it, and it just says doing violence is bad. Like, it doesn't have any actual, like, anything worth saying. It has nothing of value. Ellie isn't even a person. I know it sounds weird, but like, Ellie is literally a cipher. She exists to get a point across. She does not act in accordance with her own characterization. She acts based on the needs of the plot. She does things because that's what the writers wanted to, like, those are the beats the writers wanted to have happen.
Yeah.
She does not act like a person would. So sometimes, she'll go brutally kill like 40 people, and then she'll cry because she killed one person. It's just what the plot wants to have occur, because ultimately it turns out Neil Druckmann really likes Robert McKee's book on story called Story. And the whole plot of the game, if you read Story, you can predict everything that's going to happen because he's just repeating himself. It's not good.
Well, Doc,
and I know people are like, but it's popular. I'm sorry, I can finish this real quick.
Oh yeah, go for it. Finish up.
Okay. It's just, I know a lot of people are like, well, something's popular, therefore it must be good. But, lots of things have been popular and aren't anymore, like Beanie Babies. What's good is what lasts. And if we study art, if we're literate in art, we know what lasts. And what lasts is what's human. So what I'm trying to do is make art that's human, that's like, I hope that people who play this game, even if they don't live in Kansas, can be like, yeah, this is a really emotional experience between two people. I get grief. I get pain. I get everything that's happening here. If I can accomplish that, I'm doing good. That's what I want to do with my fiction. Sorry for my weird rant.
No, you, dude. I don't know if you've watched any episodes of the show before, but rants happen all the time. The only reason I was gonna say anything is that I can smell my dinner. So
that's a really good reason to do anything.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna say is, before we go, there is one last bit that I do in every show, and it's a little bit that I like to call the 5 questions. For anyone who is here for the first time, and if you are unaware, the 5 questions are a series of, 5 questions that I prepared before the show that have mostly nothing to do with what we've talked about so far. They are just for fun and for me to secretly judge you.
Okay.
So, question number 1. What is the best D&D class?
I've played D&D exactly one time, and our DM quit because he realized it was his first time DMing, and he realized he loved being a player and didn't love being a DM. So I'm going to say rogue, if rogues exist.
They do.
Okay,
They do
it's a rogue.
exist. Cool. All right. Question number 2. What is the last book that you read?
That's a good question that you've asked me, and I definitely have an answer somewhere, probably. Because I have ADHD, it's been getting unmanageable. It's been pretty hard to read books lately. The last novel I finished was Snow Crash, which was longer ago than I'd like to admit. I'm currently trying to make my way through Andrei Tarkovsky's Sculpting in Time and Daniel Pink's Drive. I also have a book somewhere that I'm going to be starting very soon that's about really about it's actually about human nature after disasters. That
Huh.
is the what the book is about. And it's it was a little interesting from what I read, but I hadn't really got through it as much as I wanted.
Neat.
Sorry for the weird answer.
No, that's it's a perfectly fine answer. It's better than the answer that I sometimes get where people are like, nothing. So,
Oh man, my entire floor is covered in books right now.
I have a stack. I'll send you the picture of the stack that's sitting on my my nightstand.
Okay.
So question number 3: pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Absolutely. I actually sent pineapple pizza to my best friend on his birthday. Because he hates it.
You
So I
are
sent
a
it to him.
terrible friend, sir.
I'm an incredible friend. I tailor all my gifts to the people they're meant for. And I sent him that. Originally, what I wanted to do was send him 2 pizzas. See, his girlfriend loves pineapple on pizza. So I knew it wouldn't go to waste.
Right.
But I sent I sent him that, and I sent him an all meat pizza, which I knew he would love. And if I'd had space, I would have told the delivery guy, "Can you like deliver one and then the pineapple one first, and like leave and give him like enough time to open the box and realize what it was, and then like just walk back in with it. Oh, by the way, here's the second pizza." But I only had 28 characters in the special request
Yeah.
box, so I just sent him both. Um,
Nice.
yeah, it was yeah. I
Okay,
love pineapple on pizza personally if
that's
the
a
chunks are
much
small.
better birthday idea.
It,
So,
if you really love your friends, you're gonna piss them off.
okay, that's fair. All right. Well, then, question number 4: who is your favorite Star Wars character?
Well, it's not Ogdo Bogdo. Um,
Are you? Is it Babu Frick? No.
no. Honestly, I'm trying to think like who I'd actually give a shit about that is an interesting answer, because like I like Han Solo, right? And
I
the
mean,
reason I
that's a
like Han Solo is
perfectly good
because
answer.
he goes, he's like, I'm gonna fuck off and just leave everybody, and then he comes back and does the right thing anyways. I said I like rogues. He is a rogue, right?
Yeah.
So I got a lot of reasons I like him, but that also feels like the most. That's like when you ask somebody what their favorite character is, and they say like comic characters, and they say Deadpool. It's like, really?
Well, when you think
But
about it, no, like Han's a great answer here because it's part of like the psychology behind like the final battle in Endgame, where it's Han comes back, and the reason that that resonates with us isn't because it's the right thing to do, which it is, but he made the choice to come back.
he's more of a character than Luke is, right? Like
Yeah, Luke is doing it
he
because
has
he
an
feels he has to. Han is doing it because he chooses to.
Yep, and he also has lines like, she says I love you, and he says I know, right?
Yeah.
I really liked him, and then I didn't like him in the the J.J. Abrams movies because they're terrible. Um, because yeah, I mean they're terrible because he's just like, yeah, so I reset back to square one and I'm still I'm still like they killed all the character development. So I loved that he had the character development in the early films. Like I love the charisma that Darth Vader exudes, But so many of those characters are sort of archetypal in their structure, so they're not really like people that I really like get into the nitty-gritty of. But I also don't know anything about the expanded universe. I've seen the movies
Yeah.
and I've seen the Mandalorian.
Don't worry about the expanded universe too much. Like, there's a lot of good in it for sure,
Mhm.
just as there's a lot of bad. But at the end of the day, all that matters of it is the material that the individual audience goer consumes.
Right.
And so like I love the original Rogue Squadron books. And so I'm a little sad that like the Rogue Squadron and that kind of stuff didn't appear in the sequel trilogy, but at the same time it's like I didn't lose those books. Those
They
books are
still
still
exist.
there. I still have those stories. Now I just have different stories in addition. Like I have more now.
It's true.
Like
Yeah.
I win.
That's a healthy way of looking at it, I think.
And also too, I don't have to worry about there having been a bad adaptation of it.
That's probably the best.
Yeah,
That's probably the
like
best response.
because the only thing that exists is my adaptation of it as I saw it as I read the words on the page.
Mm-hmm.
So my perfect adaptation is the only one that exists to me.
I like your outlook here. Like it's a really good outlook.
I have taken a long time building it,
Mhm.
and like I try very hard not to be outwardly negative on a lot of things, and 2020 is really testing that. But at the
I need to
same
get better
time,
at it.
yeah, but I mean, at the same time too, it's like if I like something and you don't like something, you not liking it doesn't take away from me liking it.
You may be the only person online who holds that belief other
I
than me.
I do my
And that's
best,
just because
man.
I like Fable 3.
I only played the first one.
Fable 3 is a very bad video game. I acknowledge this. I'm okay with the fact that people don't like it, and no one will ever make me feel bad for liking it.
Hey, man, like what you like.
Exactly. That's
You
what I
know,
try to tell people.
I
Like,
love classic Godzilla movies. And like I'm not trying to say that they're like Oscar worthy or anything, and some of them are just garbage, but I
well,
love them.
didn't Roger Ebert have a thing about that where he said, like, when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, I love Godzilla. He's this huge, monster stomping around. This is great. And then I got older and I was like, oh, I'm too good for this. And he goes, and now that I'm, I've seen way more movies, I realized, you know what? This is exactly what it needs to be, and this is what I want, and I'm having a good time, and that's
Yeah.
what matters.
Whereas like it kind of a good modern analogy would be like Deep Blue Sea versus the Meg. Like Deep Blue Sea didn't know that it was being Deep Blue Sea. It thought it was being Jaws. The Meg knew it was being the Meg, and it never tried to be Jaws, and it was excellent.
And once again, we come back to that thing, you shouldn't try to just like the more you see, the more the better you can kind of know yourself, right?
Yeah.
Creatively.
Well, using these two in particular, it's like they're both these completely insane premises.
Mm-hmm.
And if Deep Blue Sea had just embraced its own utter insanity, it could have been much better. The Meg
Yeah.
was all like, fuck it, giant shark. How
And
crazy
then
can we make this?
even Gianter Shark partway
Yeah,
through the movie that made it
giant
even better.
shark. Yeah, eats smaller giant shark and then eats Dwight Schrute on whale.
It was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I love that movie. They're making a sequel. I can't wait.
I'm so excited. I watched the
know.
Meg on an airplane and I was enthralled. Like it was bad, but I was enthralled
But it
because
was fun. It didn't
it's fun the
matter
way
that
that
it was bad. It was a
right,
good time.
It's Doritos.
Yeah.
And
They're
I have a
absolutely terrible
bag of
for you, but you have the bag and you feel great.
yeah, I've got a bag of spicy sweet chili Doritos here. I'm playing through Final Fantasy VII with a friend, and we've named every character after various flavors of Doritos. Like Doritos are very versatile in how they can bring joy into your life.
So who did you
And
name
that's
Cool Ranch?
well, I mean, Eris is Cool Ranch, obviously. Um,
Well, I mean, I
but
like Eris, so I wouldn't have named her Cool Ranch.
well, there's the reason we started doing this was because there was a speed run for charity, and people got to pick her name, and they picked Cool Ranch. So
Was
from
that from
there,
GDQ a couple years ago?
yeah, it was from yeah, I
Yeah,
believe so.
I
So
watched that
uh, I
speed run. That was nuts.
I mix everyone's names up, but Red 13 is Sweet Chili, obviously.
Word.
Um, I want to say that Vincent Valentine is Tapatio. Um, I cannot remember what we named Kate Sith, which is bumming me out.
See, that's a cool ranch if ever I saw one.
I could see that. The old dude whose name I'm forgetting, Sid.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sid is I think the corn flavor or whatever they're called. I'm
Just the
blanking
normal
because I'm
nacho
tired.
cheese ones.
I think so. Well, no, I don't think he's nacho cheese.
Hmm.
It's one of the weird flavors that I haven't seen a lot of. And somebody's wasabi, but I don't remember who that is. I've never actually had wasabi Doritos. Sorry, I
They
don't mean to get off track.
sound. Oh no, it's fine. They sound amazing.
Was that all 5 questions, or did you have one
No,
more?
there's one last one actually.
I was keeping count then. Hell yeah.
Question number 5. What is the place you most want to visit?
Right now?
Well, I mean, just
Uh,
I mean, yeah, that's probably going to be easier than trying to remember what it was when you were 6.
well, no, I mean what it was when I was 6 and what it is now is generally the same thing, but
Oh, neat.
the past few months it's changed. So my favorite vacation spot in the whole world is Washington D.C.
Okay.
Food's good, and I love museums.
Okay.
Um,
Have you ever been to Chicago?
I have been to Chicago. I was locked in the basement of the theater where they were playing Wicked, and I had to read a book about rabbits killing each other.
I am.
Watership Down.
Yeah, I was about to say that
Uh,
sounds like Watership
my
Down.
Yeah, it's Watership Down, and I was listening to like Nightwish on my headphones because my mom wouldn't let me. Our band got to go to a competition in Chicago,
Yeah.
but my mom wouldn't give me permission to go to Wicked because the word Wicked was in the title, and therefore it's evil. So yeah, I didn't get to actually attend that, but we went to the boardwalk thing, it sticks out into the lake.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Navy Pier.
Had some pizza there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just because
That was
like
fun.
Chicago's a top tier museum town.
It's
It's
true.
also yeah,
They
like
have a really rare Cessna there, I believe, in the Air Museum, but I've never got to go.
it's unfortunate because yeah, like Chicago is S tier.
I will have to
So
go. I actually have a friend who lives there. I might crash on his couch if he lets me. But
nice. You should.
right now, my past I'd say past couple of years, probably after I got my heart surgery in 2018, I decided what I really wanted was to go live in a cabin in the woods for a month. And I did some checking, and if Adios sells enough copies, um, I am going to rent a cabin in British Columbia in the spring, and I'm going to stay there for an entire month
Nice.
and just read some books, sit on the deck and just look out into the forest and decompress.
You know, I feel like everybody is gonna need a cabin in the woods at the end of this year.
Yeah, my Canadian friends are like, "Don't you have a cottage?" And I'm like, "Excuse me?" But apparently it's the whole thing. So
Well, I mean, they're a small population country with a very large amount of wild lands.
yep.
Yeah, so they can do that.
I wish I could do that, but I live in Kansas, so there's no point.
Yeah, I mean, would you just put it in the middle of somebody's cornfield?
Probably. There's a few lakes around, and I was camping at 1, and then a raccoon came and ate all our breakfast. I like camping, but Kansas is one of the more boring places to go camping. I slept on granite in Colorado, and that was more fun. Just climbed to the top of a mountain and
I was about to
fell
say, at
asleep.
least you know that the granite's you don't have to worry about a rock being right under your sleeping bag because it just is a rock.
Yeah, it was big enough that I slept on an entire rock, and that was weirdly more comfortable than some mattresses.
Nice. Well, Doc, it has been awesome having you here. Just looking at my monitor here, I think you are now officially the longest episode of this show.
I told you I'd probably be.
I mean,
Or maybe.
the person you're up against is going to be Rami.
Well, that makes sense.
But the reason with Rami was it was also the first time we've like really talked in 5 years.
Right.
So it was, yeah, it was a lot of like, hey, remember that time you ruined my clam chowder by just putting like 8 kilograms of pepper on it?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He was delightful to hang out with at PAX.
He is one of the nicest and most wonderful people I've ever met.
We got into a big argument in a good way, like it was productive, but like he'd said that he didn't think Kentucky Route Zero should be like made or at least get the attention, and I was like, dude, American games aren't very common. So we talked about that a bunch, and then we talked about Destiny a bunch, and why I think Bungie's going the wrong direction, why he thinks Bungie is going to be totally fine. It's like, it was a good conversation. We had duck confit. I don't know how you say it.
Comfy.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm a guy who eats hamburger helper. Like, I'm doing my best.
Dude, I like hamburger helper as well. I just speak French.
That's fair. I don't. I used to speak a little bit of German, and then I got brain damage, and now I can't do German. But
it's okay. I mean, it may help you. I don't know. German's weird.
It is very weird.
But
that's a different conversation for a different podcast.
Yeah. You know, I'll when I have like the foreign language roundtable, I'll bring you back.
Okay. Just so that I can say like ain't and y'all.
I mean, technically,
it's basically a foreign language.
Yeah, I mean, dude, technically, I'm from the American South.
That's fair.
So, because I'm a Marylander, I can trace my family roots to colonial era.
Damn.
Yeah. You know, it was my dad. He's the crazy immigrant. So, I mean, he wasn't an immigrant. His grandparents were, but you know what I mean. And so it's, you know, like I understand. I've also spent a lot of time in West Virginia. So I don't speak it, but I can fully understand hillbilly.
That makes sense. So it's not really a foreign language then to you.
No, and thankfully they understand. They thankfully understand English. I understand hillbilly. There's no boundaries.
Right.
You know, I can at least make. You know, they can make contextual inferences, and so can I. So it all works out.
It makes sense. I'm sorry. I wish I had a better response to that. I think it's fading a bit. Well, man, Doc, this has been great though.
Yeah, man. Well, one, it's great to talk to you outside of, you know, like 6 or 7 responses on Twitter. But then two, it's just, you know, like, yeah, you're a cool dude. You know?
I like to think so. I try to be.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert, you're succeeding.
So far.
Well, Doc, unfortunately I misspelled your Twitter thing. It's been bugging me the whole time the show, because I have that little ticker right in front of you, and I put DOS Squiddy, and I'm just like,
I saw that, and I was like, I should let him know after the show.
Oh no, believe me, I know.
Okay.
Because I'm sitting here and I'm reading it in real time, and every time it pops up, because it's every 8 seconds or so, and I'm just like, yep. Yeah. It's like when you send a tweet to somebody like really cool and they like it, and then you realize you had a really stupid typo in it, except every 8 seconds.
Well, I mean, that would A, imply I'm really cool, which isn't true. It's like 80 degrees here. And B,
Oh,
yeah, I was making an air conditioning joke. Um, and B, that would imply that I care. I'm fine with typos. They exist. They happen.
I know, but I care because I'm trying to be professional on this show.
You have been very professional. You
Well,
just had a
thank you.
typo. That
Yeah.
happens.
Well, I will talk to you again in just a moment. I'm just going to switch over to this camera angle, and I'm going to say, everybody was here. Thank you all so much for coming. Magic, it's good to see you. Sorry you popped in at like the weird end time. Um, it's been a weird, crazy last couple weeks with the show. No excuses, no explanations. It's just been weird. I'm working on it. Tomorrow, I will have a show with Bunny Box Games, the developers behind You Arrive in a Town, which was supposed to be on Monday, but reasons. It'll be tomorrow at the normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Other than that, everybody, remember, wear your mask, drink some water, have some vitamins, and be kind to one another. And I'll see you on the next episode of That Tom Clancy Show. So until then, have a great night. Bye.